Thank you again for coming here. And today is another live, another weekend. And today we are going to do some live coding. So I haven't done much live coding before. I haven't done a lot of code. I have done a lot of coding, but on recorded video, but not on coding as such. But it's a good challenge to take, I think, and I hope that it will be a good experience. As we'll be doing live coding, something might break, something might not work. So please have patience with that, and we'll be probably fixing things together. All right. So what are the things that we are going to see today? What are the things that we are going to do today? Before we get there, first of all, let me thank each of you who have supported Tapascript so far, who have subscribed to Tapascript, you know took the step forward to become a member of Tapascript. That really means a lot. So thank you very much. You guys are the real motivators for me to kind of keep going on. So yeah, thank you. Okay, so with that, let us now get to see like what are the things that we are going to cover. And for that, I'm going to share my screen. Just give me a second. Share screen, share. All right, I'm sharing my screen. Just need some notification from any of you that you are able to see the screen well. Just let me know. I hope I am able to show the screen. So if you're able to see the screen, this is the agenda for today. The first thing is, of course, welcome. I am welcoming all of you to this live. Then you'll understand like the use case because we're saying that let's code. So we need to take some use case so that we can actually start building that or start coding along with it. You can also code along with me. I think that will be fun if you want. Like whatever I am doing, just try to follow, or you can also code later once you finish watching it. Anyway, it will be recorded, it will be saved, so you can come to the channel and you can actually start looking into. So that will be good too. What are the focus areas we're going to talk about? Like what are the areas that we're going to focus while building this? Then basically the design, code, refactor, improve, and it's an iteration, right? You code, you refactor, you improve it, again you code, refactor, improve. So that is the cycle that I'm sure that we're going to see that. I have a small announcement to make towards the end. So if you stay by till the end, we'll discuss this announcement. So first thing first, let's start talking about the use case in hand, like what are the things that we are going to take as a use case. So I have a small use case to build today. Let me just increase zoom in. Yeah, this is a small use case which we call inventory dashboard, and it's a probably a bit looks like a simplistic application. I'm sure that it will be a very simplistic application for many of you, and the focus area for this is, of course, is not like the application itself. It's not about building a rocket. It's not about building something which is like very super cool, because the focus is about let's code, not let's build. So what we are going to focus on is like while building this one, we'll be using JavaScript, and I'm running 40 days of JavaScript. If you are part of it, great, you already know. If you're not part of it, feel free to check it out. It's a 40 days journey of learning JavaScript in depth and also doing hands-on along with it. So I thought it will be kind of helpful, and also it's like related if I start coding in JavaScript, along with that bring in Tailwind CSS. We're going to kind of explain like what Tailwind CSS and everything. Probably you already know. And then with this stack, try to code and see like how in real life we refactor some of this code, how we make things better, what are the standards that we follow, best coding things that we follow. Even in this simplistic app like this, we can do this. And then there is a chart at the bottom, right? I mean, we can implement it with practically in any chart that is available, any chart library. If you're using React or any other framework, you might be already using chart libraries, graph libraries, animation libraries. But let's see how it looks like to use it with a plain vanilla JS and doing something, something very base level. So that's basically the focus area and the expectation of it, right? Um, I would love that if you have any question, you can keep posting those questions in the comment area. Whenever I get time, I'll look into the comment area and then try to answer the questions. Or also at the end of it also we'll be taking up some questions. Now let's start with the thing that we have focus area done is called design, right? So let's start with the design part of it. So when I say design, not necessarily I mean a Figma design, right? So that's probably a person with the UX role, a design role or designer role will be doing that, and that role more often will give you a UI to kind of start building. So your work as a developer, as a web developer, starts from there, or a JavaScript developer starts from there. So some of you who are already working in organizations, probably doing this day in, day out, folks will be getting into the organization tomorrow. For them, it might be also be a news that you will be doing that, right? But for both the parties, what I am going to share is like when I get a thing like this, a design like this, how I think through, and before I start coding, what are the thought process that come in my mind, and how I kind of make a progress on this. And it's not like that this is the best thing to do, but this is something that I found out over the years that it probably helps me a lot. It might help you as well. And if you have other suggestions, please feel free to comment. So if I get this as a design and if I have to build this one, the first thing that I need to do is like I need to do the HTML part, right? Because that's the markup of my application. That's going to give me the screen and the structure. And then I have to think about putting the CSS to kind of make this structure much more beautiful. And then I have to get the JavaScript to get the dynamic behavior so that my entire application start working. So that's the entire flow, right? Now, first thing, if I have to think about the structure, the HTML structure, before even I start putting things in terms of HTML, I can start breaking like how I can think about the structure at a high level, right? So a tool like Excalibur or any other tool will be very, very helpful. So here I have a header. So of course, I'll be thinking about using some kind of heading, right? So I can actually mark this as a heading, and then I will have a area somewhere in my HTML, maybe a div, a division, which will have some of these cards. This is an inventory dashboard, so it has the product cards, right? So it is a laptop, it's a desktop chair, notebook, so different kind of product that I am able to see, and for each of the product I have the list of products. So for that I'll have an area in my HTML, a structure where I can actually list down all the products. And then inside each of this, inside that product list, I can actually now take out each of these product details, right? Each of these product details. For that I have to think about doing something. Once I get the product data, I can break this ahead and start building each of these product cards, right? And then below I have another area where I have to show a stock versus sold chart. What does it mean? It means that if you see laptop over here, laptop, there are 15 sold and 4 still there in the stock. So the below chart is showing that for laptop, 4 in blue color is sold and this many 15 are in stock. Similarly for the desktop and for the notepad. So I have to have a distinguished area where actually I can play with these charts. I can render this chart, I can put this chart, I should have this area. Inside that again, I see like I have something like a heading over here. This is the heading for the chart. And then I will actually render the entire chart piece over here, right? The legend and everything comes inside the chart itself. So once I get a design, like how complex the design it must be, ultimately you will be able to break the design in terms of pages and then page in terms of the smaller components, right? Now again, we are not talking about React, so as such don't connect it to the React components. Components in a sense is like a unit of the UI which you can actually control as much as possible independently, right? In JavaScript you will have a sense of dependencies between these components, hard dependencies. The libraries like React or a framework like Vue and others will come in picture to reduce that dependencies as much as possible, the code level dependencies, right? So that is why those libraries and framework are really useful later point in time. But still in the JavaScript level itself, you should start thinking about like how I can actually make these components, and in JavaScript the way that you make it by writing functions. So functions give you the logic for that particular component. A part of HTML gives you the structure for that particular component, and you apply the style on top of it to make that particular component ready, right? So that's how you should be thinking. And we have not written a single line of code so far, but we have taken this screenshot, we have taken this one, and what we are trying to do over here, basically trying to think like how we are going to build our HTML and all those things, right? That's the whole purpose of it. So yeah, as we have done this, so we know that we have identified different areas: heading, area to keep the product list, then we have to build the individual product, then a chart area, then again another heading, and then the chart itself. So these are the things that I have to keep in mind. In between, you can be little more proactive in terms of how do you handle application. Assume that there will be API at the back end, and we are not writing API in this live, maybe some live. If you guys really like, the way we are doing this live, maybe in future we'll be doing live on building APIs and all these things. It's all based on you guys' interest, how much interested you are in, than how much interest I am, right? So right now we'll be mocking some APIs, and though we'll be mocking, we won't be importing the JSON into a JavaScript. Rather, we will be hosting some APIs locally, and that API is going to give us all this inventory details, like all the product details, and we are going to go and fetch those product details, going to render them on our UI. There is a restock button right over here. What is restock? How we can think of implementing it is like every time we click on restock, we will fill the stock of this particular product by maybe by another one product or another 2 or 5, right? When you click on it, maybe the stock go from 4 to 9, right? Every time we click on restock. So we can think about building that also as a feature. You might want to improvise on top of that by having a add product button over here. Like if you click on add product, from here itself you will be able to add a new product, and that kind of gets added over here. So all these things we can actually think of, but how far we go in this live within 1 hour, let's see. And you can actually take some of this as a task for future and do by yourself. The code will be there with you after we finish the live. All right, so let's go to VS Code for a moment. Just closing this. All right, so I have VS Code, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to open it side by side. Okay, so the VS Code is here, and whatever we are going to build, the output of it, let's see in the browser side by side, so that I don't have to switch, in between. And I've opened the terminal from here. The first thing that I'll be worrying about before even writing any HTML, before even writing any JavaScript, is the data, right? So let's worry about data. I've created a folder called live. It's a very temporary folder, and all the code that we'll be writing, it will go to GitHub. I'll share that link in the description of this video once the live is over. So first thing is, let's worry about API, and let's use JSON server. I hope that many of you know what is JSON server. It's I think it's a brilliant library where if you are focusing on building the UI layer and you don't want to worry about the APIs, Node.js, Fast API, whatever the ways of building API, if your focus is not there, you can pretty well still simulate your API interfaces that will run on HTTP, and you can consume them in your UI, and your UI can be as functional as you wanted with the same API URL. Tomorrow the same API URL can be hosted using a node-based server or whatever it is, right? That's possibility. So in this live, our focus is on coding with JavaScript, mostly front end, not the node. So we'll be using JSON server. Okay. So for that, let's create a directory called API, and I'll do cd API. Okay, I am inside API now. Okay, now for using JSON server, I have to install this library, JSON server. I have to install this library using npm. So I need to have an npm ecosystem so that I can install an npm library. Right now, I don't have any npm ecosystem, as in it's an empty folder. It doesn't have anything. So to enable the npm ecosystem, let's do that. So for example, we can do npm init. Most of you know, right? We can actually bootstrap a node-based application using this command npm init. What it is going to create is going to create a metadata file called package.json. Inside that, you can actually declare all the dependencies for the project, and you can actually install them, manage them, all these things, right? So we'll go with some of the questions with the default answer. For example, package name API. Yeah, let's go ahead with the version. Okay, description. It is JSON. If you don't give also no problem, but as a habit I always write, so it is a JSON server based API. Entry point, leave it, test leave it, git leave it, for example. I always suggest you give some keywords if you're making this library as open source, because through which, or you publish the npm through which the discoverability happens of your npm. Author I can give Tapascript for now. Let's say MIT. Okay, that's it. Okay, yes, go ahead. So right now it is going to create a package.json file. This is what it has created, a package.json file. If I just close this off, this is the file that I have got, and it has got created with all the inputs that we have given. Okay, by the way, for some of you these are the things might be ABCD of the language, because very basic I can understand, but I'm taking time to do it for a couple of reasons. One is like there might be some beginners who would still enjoy going through very basic and taking time to do something, and for many of you it could be again, some thought provoking, oh, something else I do, so let me share. So please do that in the comments so that all of us learn. Okay, so this is good. Now let's go ahead and start installing JSON server. Now to install that, you can do npm install JSON server. I generally use yarn. I still need to, I think, upgrade myself to pnpm. So I'll do yarn add JSON server. So this is supposed to install the JSON server for me. Yeah, it is installing. It is going to take some time, and now it is installed. So if I go to package.json, I'll be able to see the JSON server got installed. If you're actually using JSON server 1 or beta 3 is still not very much stable. It has some issue when you work with Node.js Express server.js file. I often has to fall back to 0.17.x for that purpose, but right now we are not integrating it with another node routing or node server. So fine, we'll go ahead with this 1.0.0 beta 3, whatever we have. Okay, this is good, this is cool. So JSON server is installed. Now what we can do over here, we can create another folder called inventory, because you might keep creating different data API contract, and you might want to keep them in different kind of files and different kind of folder structure. That's the whole reason I can actually do this. Or you can also directly keep inside API. It is completely your choice, completely your choice. So let's do it, and let's create a new file called db.json. You can give it any name, and this is where in the JSON contract it will actually provide what is the data that we'll be dealing with when we actually interact with this API. So the data that we are planning to deal with is a product data. So I have already cooked up a product data. I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to paste it over here. So this is the product data that we'll be using. It's an array with the products being the key name, and this is the array. Inside that, each of the element are having each of the product information. So for example, the first one is having an ID, name is laptop, stock, how many got sold, what is the price of each of the pieces, and when it got last updated. A simple product JSON taken from internet will be using this. Okay, so this product JSON I have to make it available through HTTP URL. That is why JSON server is famous, and that's what we should be using. So for that, let us do one quick thing over here. You see this script. I came to this package.json inside API, this package.json file. So coming here, what you can do, come to the scripts part. We are not using any test right now. You can give start as a command, and then over here you can write the command npx then JSON server, and then give the path where your the db.json file is. So our db.json file is in inventory in the same level, and inside the db.json, right? So we can give it like ./inventory and then db.json. Okay, so this much command should be enough for this much command should be enough for JSON server to look into this particular file path, I hope, and then it bootstrap its API and give us the endpoint. So let's see if this much works. So we'll go back And as we have added this call start script, so we can actually do like npm run start or yarn start to bootstrap it. So let's go ahead and do yarn start. Okay, so what I'm getting over here, if you take a look, let me make it a little more bigger. The moment I did yarn start, the JSON server started in the port number 3000, and then it gives me an endpoint like this. Let me take this endpoint, go over here, enter, and now this serves me the at least the gate API that I'm seeing, and this is the same JSON that whatever we have put. So my API side of thing is ready. So anytime you want to do something with UI and you want a fake API, want to quickly bootstrap, this is the way that you can do. It's probably the easiest way. In the last 5 minutes we have done it. Now I won't be worrying about the API layer at all. I'm going to call this localhost 3000 slash products every time whenever I need product. I'm going to call this URL with slash product ID, for example. If I get the want to get the second product details, it gives me this particular product's ID. If I want to edit this particular product stock, I'll be doing a patch call. If I want to delete it, I will be deleting it. If I want to add a new product, I'll be doing a post call on the same API. Everything will work. Okay. So this is cool. One small thing though, my UI also will learn, is going to run on localhost 3000, and this is also running on localhost 3000. So there might be a port conflict. So either I can change my UI port to 3000, something else other than 3000, or I can do for API. It's always been a habit. I don't know, it's a bad habit or a good habit to run the UI always on localhost 3000. So let me sacrifice at the API side. So I'm going to give another switch. This might be useful for you. It's called -p or -p, and then you give any port on which you want to run the API server. So I've given 3001 now. So instead of 3000, it will run on 3001. So if I go and do yarn start, so I'll see now it's running on 3001. So if I refresh this, it won't work because it's no more running on 3000. I have to now change this one to 3001 for it to come. So API is done, dusted. Now let's move towards the UI side of things, right? So for UI side of things, I already have API over here. So what I do, I'll create one more terminal. Okay, let's remove all this. Let me bootstrap API inside the live folder itself. And if I do ls, I already have API folder, so I can do right over here. Okay, so how can I do it? So we can use, so we have created one utility called JSBase. Just want to introduce to you. It's under Tapascript npm. So npx Tapascript. If you do js-base, you basically get a scaffolding using plain JavaScript along with Tailwind if you want. We'll be enhancing this to add few more support. But why we did it? Because it's, even when it is available elsewhere. Why we did it? One is like probably the learning. Second thing is like now we can enhance and make introduce capabilities based on our wish. Like we don't have to depend on anything else. We might want to get this JS base with Vite tomorrow, or maybe with ShardCN. So we don't know, right? Different ways we can actually probably handle it. So a very basic one where you can actually bootstrap JavaScript, plain old JavaScript with Tailwind. Often we need it, right? At least to do some like this exercise program and things like this. Okay, so if I do this, it's going to ask me that enter your project name. Now I can give my project name, say dashboard, because you're building a inventory dashboard. Yes, I want to use Tailwind CSS. So now it's going to clone and going to set up everything for me. It will also do the npm install so that I don't have to do the npm install by myself. And if I do ls now, I'm going to see both API and dashboard are there. So dashboard is my JavaScript project already configured with Tailwind. So let's go inside dashboard. And I have a bunch of files already there for me. I don't have to worry about it. Only thing that I'll be doing is to look into what it offered me in the package.json file. So in package.json file, it has a command called start. That's the only thing that I care right now. So I'll go to the prompt again and I'll do yarn start. So now this guy is going to run on localhost 3000. Yes, it's running on localhost 3000. So basic bootstrapping is there. I'm going to open up another browser. doing localhost 3000. So I have this very basic UI, which is set up, everything is done. So it means that now I can go to index.html file and then start imagining the structure that we have just now discussed, and then start creating all those divs and everything that require for me, right? Okay, so let's do that. Let's run it side by side over here, and I'll just close this because I don't need this. I'll go inside dashboard. Okay, let's understand the structure. It has a folder called pages. If I go inside pages, I have index.html. Okay, this is the index.html giving this UI. I can even confirm that. How can I confirm that? I can confirm that by taking this div and delete it. And then if I refresh it, yeah, it's gone. So this is the same thing that is running, right? Okay. Now the few changes, okay, it says document, but we are building an inventory dashboard. You can change it if you want. Okay. And then let's go back to our Excalibur for a moment. So this is what we thought we'll be doing, right? There is a H1, which is saying inventory dashboard. And then we have a div where we'll be listing down all this product list. We can call it as product container. Then maybe we can go a little bit smarter. We can have a loading indicator when the data is coming, though data will come very fast. Everything is local, right? But still you can code for it. If there is an error, we can show the error. We can have some placeholder for those. And then this one could be our, how do we name it? It could be our chart container or something like that. Inside that there will be a H2. Why it is H2, not H1 again? Because for accessibility, you can have, or you should have, only one H1 tag in the page, right? These are things we don't worry about, right, when you code, but it's good to worry. So you already have a H1, so this should be H2. And then there will be another div or a canvas where I can actually bootstrap this chart based on the data, right? Where is the data coming from? Coming from the API that we have already established. So good. Now let's go back to code again. Let's make this guy small. Small, I said. Okay. Let's be here and let's start creating the thing. So first thing that we told, we'll be creating a div. This is my product container. Okay, I should not be writing code like this. Rather, let's start, if you are learning from this, let's start using emits, because that's going to make things really productive. So for example, if I have to create a div with the ID called product container, so I'll be doing like div, then # product container, and enter is going to keep, create it. So at least few line of save. You can even add the classes with that, right? Div # product container dot grid. It is going to create div id equals to product container class equals to grid. Okay, so this is very, very powerful. So I have a product container first, and after that I'm going to create another div with the id called loading, where I'll be keeping loading. Then I'll be creating another one called error, where I'll be keeping all the error messages. So I'm creating the structure, right? And then let's create another div. If I have to give an ID, let's call it chart container. So inside this, we'll keep all the chart related things, right? Now above product container, we had something called a H1, where we are saying that it's inventory dashboard. So let's add that H1. So we can add a H1 over here, and we can call it as inventory dashboard. So if not anything else, if I refresh now my inventory dashboard, at least the header should come. So that appeared. Now let's add some minimalistic style so that this page start looking a little bit better. At least in this smaller screen also, it's kind of start appearing in little bit better way. So how do we do it? Maybe all this H1 div, everything we can keep inside one more div, and what we can do is we can control that using the style. So that's something we can do. Now I don't want to spend too much time in doing the HTML and other things. I'm sure that you are much more creative than me. But I want to focus on the JavaScript side of it and the logic building side of it. But let's do some minimalistic things. So now let's introduce Tailwind. So most of you may know already like what Tailwind is. It's like utility based CSS framework where you really don't have to remember a lot of CSS, what do you say, CSS syntax, I would say. But I never say you don't have to remember CSS fundamentals, because without CSS fundamentals, you will still fail in Tailwind, using to fail in Tailwind, because you have to know, right, what you need, and that need come from the fundamentals. So if you have that fundamentals, is superb. Actually, you can use Tailwind really, really way. For example, if I want, auto margin, like what I'm going to write is just mx hyphen auto. That's it. So that's going to give me the auto margin from the outside class, right? I'm going to do p hyphen 4. That's going to give me, the, what do you say, the padding 4, right? So these are the thing, I would say that is pretty important for all of us to understand, all of us to know. So you can go to tailwind.css, tailwind css website, and like how to integrate it in your daily project and everything. I hope the way that we have installed so far, we should be having Tailwind working, because yeah, if I just refresh, you see that it got the padding over here, like the 4 uh, P4. That's what we have used. Okay. Sometime on my VS Code, the IntelliSense of Tailwind doesn't work. I don't know why. I have to restart VS Code and then only it works. I'm not sure if it happens with you guys also or not. So yeah, this is how we'll be writing. Now, some of the styles, again, I told, like, I don't want to spend too much time in terms of writing the styles. I'm going to explain to it. So some of the styles I have kept in my notepad. I'm going to copy those styles because I want to spend time on writing JavaScript, but I'm going to explain to you like what I'm exactly copying. So for example, in this body, at the body level, if I want to give a, say, grayish tone background, and maybe a grayish tone foreground, text ground. So you can control, always you have to complement, right, the color. If you give a background gray of a lower tone, you will give a background, text gray of a higher tone, right? So that it is more dark text with a, lighter background. And then otherwise you do a vice versa. You go for a background slate, which is like, very darker tone, and the text will be like whiter tone. So you match with that. Like that's how we do dark theme and light theme also, right? We're changing the theme and all those things. So let's start with a very basic style of this, like gray 100 and gray 900. Won't probably see a lot of changes other than a little bit grayish the background become. This div we have already have written this one. Now this h1, what we can do, we can make this h1 looks little bit bigger, and we can center this text. We have seen that in the UI, right, on the design. So here let's add few classes where we are making a big text. 3xl means a bigger text, a bold font, uh, margin bottom, good amount of margin bottom, and making the text as center. So you will see this is properly aligned right over here. So this is good. So our inventory dashboard, that particular header has come properly and aligned properly. Okay, after the header, we have this div ID product container. Now here what we have imagined, right? We have imagined like, let me take this one a little bit here. Like each of the product card sit side by side. Now here the thought process of layouts come into picture. When you say layout, like whether you're going for a flex layout, you're going for a grid layout, like what kind of layout you are selecting. So this is more look like a grid, right? And you can have multiple products like a grid coming one by one, right? In a row you have 3, and then another row you can have another 3, another 3, another 3. And then you can also manage it in a way like when you are getting into the smaller screen, let's have only 2. And in the grid, how do you manage that? 2 to 3 and all these things. You manage it using the calls, right? COLS calls. So there are a lot of properties for grid. That's why I'm saying that in the CSS you have to really know that what grid does, what flex does. You can read it from CSS Tricks is having a very good resources. If you just search for CSS Tricks flex layout, you will get awesome resource written with lot of visualization to make you understand. Same for grid. I would really request you to go through it if you want to really learn it. Now, once you learn that, then once you come to Tailwind CSS, it's very easy for you to kind of make the choice and make that UI better. So for us, it makes sense like this product container to make a grid based layout, because inside that each of this product card can be aligned as a grid inside grid one of the components, right? So we can actually start writing things like grid. This is again CSS, Tailwind CSS thing, but it's going to give me the actual CSS grid CSS, right? Then we can define like how many columns that we are actually looking for, and we can use different breakpoint, like when we am in the medium breakpoint, like medium screen or the smaller screen or the larger screen. In different breakpoints, how many columns we want based on this particular value, whether it's 1, 2, 4, 5, that many number of cards will be visible inside that card list grid, right? So this is how you should be thinking in terms of making your design practical when you are doing the coding, right? So let me first just copy this classes because it's a waste of time writing. Then let me explain. So I have opted for grid layout, and you can see that when I'm in the large screen, I want to show 3, medium screen 2 column, and otherwise it's 1. And I'm giving a gap of 4. There should be gap between each of those grid items, and there is a margin bottom. Okay, so each of this number 6 doesn't directly go to 6% or 6 pixel. Each of this number having a mapping of certain EM values, right, which is in turn certain PX values, right? So that is how the Tailwind utility classes are, right? Those are all documented in the Tailwind CSS documentation. So this is fine. This div is there, and then this loading, maybe for error alone, I can add a class where if there is an error, it might come in the red color. So I can do a text rate 500, kind of medium dark red and some kind of bottom stuff. And then in this chart container, let me add another bunch of classes so that the chart looks good. When actually we went to Excalibur and we saw this one, in our design we had actually a rounded corner over here. Now you can't see because I have given that blue color border, but we had a rounded corner and it has a whitish background because the main background we have made it at gray. So in top of that, if I want a complete whitish background, I can provide that background color as well, right? So over here, I can give like a BG white, some kind of padding, a rounded corner, and a shadow. So if you see here, a little bit white color has come. Nothing is inside that. But as per our mockup, we are supposed to have a H2, right, inside this. And this H2 should have what is the stock versus sold chart. So stock versus sold chart. This is the H2 that we are going to have. And after below this H2, we were going to have another canvas, I told, and inside that canvas we will be getting our chart later point in time. So let's get a canvas with an ID, let's call it as inventory chart. So I have this canvas ready, and we'll do something with this canvas. But for now, let's add some more classes that I have written for this H2 so that it looks a little better as per the mockup. And I think we are pretty much done. You see over here, we're kind of done. Like we have this canvas, and this is the basic height of the canvas is taking. We can actually control the height of the canvas by putting a height here also. We can say height 200. This should be inside the code. 200. Yeah. So yeah, it increased, right, little bit, so we can actually control the height. Okay, so that's all about this HTML part. We have taken some time in the HTML, that's okay. But now let's go to the script part and let's start doing some coding so that this become alive and it has a lot of dynamic behavior. So inside pages, I'm going to create a new file called inventory.js. Okay, before I proceed, let me go to the comment section once and see whether people have any comment. Okay, there's no comment, so either you are listening to me doing something or you're doing something else, I don't know. At least post a comment if you're enjoying or if you are liking, like so far whatever we are doing. That will be a great thing. Okay, so let's come back to my coding. Okay, so this is the inventory.js file. I have to include this file in HTML so that I can start coding, of course, right? So coming to the HTML, let's include script:/src, and here I'm going to take inventory.js, and as I'm putting this inside head, not at the end of the body, I'll be using defer, so that I'll make sure that this script gets loaded after my DOM is ready with all these HTML elements that I have put over here, right? In the first video of 40 days of JavaScript, I explained like what is defer, what is async, and all these things. So if you have gone through it, or if you already know it, you know it, right? So this inventory.js is now loaded. How can I prove it? Let's put simple console.log, calling it inventory, and then let's put out the debugger over here somewhere below. Let's refresh. Yeah, I see inventory over here. So it means that my JavaScript has been linked correctly. Okay, now it's time to code. So let's go to inventory.js. Let me check my thing again. Yep, following along. Yeah, thanks Sham for thanks Maisha, Sham, everyone. Okay, so let's go back and start coding. So now the thought process before we code, right? So before you code, every time the thought process is pretty important. How do we start putting the things? Of course, we have an API. We all know that. Now, as we have an API, the thing that we have to now work on is to fetch the thing from the API, correct? That's the next thing. Now, how do we do it? Of course, we have to take advantage of promises. We have learned about promises. We have created a lot of videos about promises and all these things. So the thing that we'll be using is JavaScript, one of the famous API, browser API or web API called fetch. So we'll be using the fetch API to call this endpoint, invoke this endpoint, and invoke the HTTP methods underlying, and we'll be fetching the details and we'll start showing that. So no doubt about that. But the focus area over here is like once we start coding, let's figure it out like how we can actually optimize this code further and how can we make this code further going forward. Okay, now we are using plain old JavaScript, no React or as such. So there is no fancy state management yet. There are a lot of code that we have to write in terms of DOM manipulation. So for that, we have to be ready with looking into each of these pieces. So you want to access, first of all, this product container, isn't it? Because inside this product container is where you will be injecting each of this inventory product data. So the product container is having an ID. Let's copy this guy. Go over here and let's say const, we'll say name it as container equals to document dot get element by ID, and I'll put the product container over here. So I get a hand on that particular container. Similarly, I'm just going to copy, no rush to write. So I have few more things to take from here. One is like this loading. So let's take this loading. Let's take this loading. Then we'll take this error. We will take this error. We'll take this error, and then maybe the chart. Okay. Okay. I probably don't need this div to be queried because I won't do anything in this div. So this ID is unnecessary actually. I can get rid of it. I don't need this ID. What I need is the ID of this canvas where I'll be injecting the graph and its property. So I need this inventory chart. I'll copy this. I'll put it inventory chart over here, over here. So right now I have everything that I have to deal as an HTML element using the DOM APIs using JavaScript. Okay. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to write a function called display products. Makes sense, right? Because the top portion, what we have seen is coming over here where I'm going to display all the products, right? Then all other functionality of chart and everything come into picture. So let's do a function called display product. Now, if you are writing this code, what would you write inside the display product? What would you do inside display product? So everybody has different ways of thinking about code and thinking about doing things. How I usually do is whenever I'm writing a function, I write things a bit in English. Nowadays it's also useful because you can directly feed them to Copilot or any other ChatGPT or anything, because that's probably can give you the initial code, right? That is useful. So I felt like that 20 years old practice is somewhat is paying, because I can write prompt from that. So what I write usually, okay, fetch the product data. So it's basically to do what I'm going to do. So I'll first fetch the product data, then I will iterate through product data, products, then I will render each product information, and this is what basically I'm going to do inside display product, right? So first thing is to fetch the product data. So fetch will happen using a fetch call. So instead of writing the fetch call inside, what I can think about, making this code modular from the beginning itself. Let's write the method, or let's write another function called fetch products, because these fetch products might be useful or maybe reused in multiple places. One is to display the product. It can also be useful tomorrow to display the chart, or you notice that there was a button for each of the product to restock it. So after restocking, if you want to fetch the fresh product and want to show it again want to re-render, it might be useful there also. So logic building is one part. The second part that I want you guys to think through, guys, is like take some time before you start putting code. Think like how you can initially itself you can think about the modularizing code, but 90% of the code modularization, clean code won't happen there. It will happen as you write. Okay, but it's still good to give that thought process so that it is with you. That's it, right? So let's write a function assuming that it will be used in multiple places, call fetch products. Now I'm going to use the fetch call over here, which is an async call. So I have to use await in front of it. So await, I'll do fetch. And what is my URL? My URL is HTTP. I have it here. I can copy. Yeah, this one. So this is my URL that I am going to use to fetch the data, right? So this is an async method. I have to use await to execute it. I can use await inside a function, but I have to make that function as an async function. So I have to use the keyword async in front of it. Simple as that. What it returns me? It returns me a response object, which has a lot of information basically. And again, for today's of JavaScript, if you have come across till the video number, I don't know, 25, 26, whatever, this and all I have clarified there, like each of this object and what it has and everything, right? And here you can do certain amount of validation also. For example, you can do something like it has a property called okay. So you can check if the response is not okay with the not sign. You can actually throw an error from here. You can say throw new error. Again, error handling, very important concept. And you can say, problem in fetching product list, something like that. Now I'm throwing this error, but I am not really catching it anywhere, right? So one good practice that always you should have in your function when you are dealing with anything external, you must do error handling. And what you can use for that is simple try catch, right? So I can do try catch. Here I can use ERR, and then this is my error object, that whenever the error is thrown, all the error information will be there inside this error object. I can cut this code that I have written so far and I can paste it. This is what I was telling you, the iteration, right? I didn't write the try catch in the beginning itself, so I had to do this refactoring. So refactoring is inevitable. You will be doing every time you write code. The more you write code, probably some of these things will be doing better. In the next function, whenever I write to do any fetch call, I'll be writing the try catch in the beginning. That's the learning, right? So this is good. Now, if I get an error, there are a few things that I can do. One is like I can get the message from error.message, and then I can put this message in the console. And do you remember that I have an element which is like this error? We had created this, right? So that means I can take this guy and I can do like dot inner text or text content. Which one will you use? I'll go for text content. Why? Because I want to deal with only is text part of it. I have already styled this error div with some style, right? So I'm not dealing with like, any kind of HTML. So definitely not inner HTML. Inner text, because I'm only going to set the text of it. It has nothing to do with what kind of style this particular text should have. That's the difference between a text content and inner text, right? When you do some element dot text content, if that particular element is having some kind of style, for example, display none, your text content will return you only the text part of it, the entire text part of it. But if you do inner text, that will also take that particular style into account, right? The display none is over there. So it won't give you the part which is actually hidden, right? So again, whenever you are using the text content versus inner text, do some study about the differences between them. For setting, is probably still okay, that it doesn't make too much of difference. But when you are getting the value, there is definitely a difference that might impact like what kind of data that, or what kind of return value that you'll be working with. So here I can do a message. This is how my error has been handled. So fine, I don't have to worry about this error anymore. Now I have this response. So inside the response, you get something called response.json. What it returns? It returns another promise, right? So if it returns a promise, means I have to handle that promise. Either I use dot then and everything, but we are in the async await mode. So I'll be doing it using await again. And I can now get back the actual data, which I can take it in a variable called products. And that's my product data. And what I can do from here, I can do a return of products. Okay. So I hope this makes sense. First, I got the response. I checked whether the response is okay or not. If it is not, I'm just throwing an error. If it is the case, then response.json, give a promise. I'm resolving it using await, and I'm getting the products. I'm returning the products. Now this fetch products is ready. Remember, it's an async. So if I'm using it to fetching the product data over here, I have to use an await keyword in front of it. As I'm using await inside a function, I have to use an async keyword, along with it. So this is how, of course, you will be coding step by step, right? And I would be putting everything over here, maybe inside try and catch, who knows, from any of the method or any of the code that I'll be using inside it, I might rethrow an exception, which I have to handle over here. Possibility, right? Always a possibility. So I'll be doing a catch error, maybe doing something with it later. Okay. So I have this product. Now I can do const products equals to await fetch products. This should give me the products. Now let's do a console.log of products. So one of the habit I have built is like not trusting myself too much with code, because I don't want to face an error after writing 200 lines of code. Rather, let's test it, immediately. So we have done so far. Let's pull this up and then refresh. I have one message. It only says inventory, is because I have not called this display product yet. So let's call this display product, and now let's refresh. Yes, so here I get 3 products listed with that console.log of products I have done. If I go to network tab, I should be able to see this network tab. Yeah, this products also, like this call and the response. Okay, so far things are kind of going on well, no issues. Now let's go and start doing the UI for it. So we have to iterate through the products, isn't it? This is what my next goal. Now for iterating, there are multiple things that we can use. Of course, the prominent thing that we can use as it is an array is for each, right? In the array class with array master course, we have done that for each, map, each of these things. So I'm sure like you know it already. So let's do products dot for each. What it takes E is capital. What it takes a callback function, and in this callback function we actually iterate through each of these products. So we get each of the product information, each of the element of the array on which we are applying the for each. Okay, so I got the product. So this will have information about all the like name, its category, what was the stock, then it has how many sold, the price, the last updated value, all these things. Fine, great. So how can we print this? You remember we have this container. We got this container. This container is nothing but this product container at the top here. And there is nothing literally, because everything inside this supposed to come dynamically. So what we are going to do is, like, we are already in the mode of doing dynamic things. So what we have to do, we have to take this, somehow create the structure of each of those boxes and add that into this container. So let's do that. To do that, we can again take multiple route. One route could be, we can directly use something called inner HTML over here. And here we can construct the exact structure, the structure that will create each of those boxes. That is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, you will have the structure in your mind somewhere, like, it will, let's go there. Yeah, it will have a div. Inside the div there will be another, say, h3. Then there will be a span, a value, span, a value, a button. This is the thing, right? So you can pretty well come here and create those element also using the DOM API. Like, you can do like a document.create element, pass a div, it will create a div for you. And that div you can actually attach to this container, saying the container.appendChild, that div. So that will create that DOM and the DOM tree in this hierarchy. There are multiple ways that you can do it. I would suggest that you can do inner HTML way the places where you are not accepting user input through the UI, right? Because inner HTML, what it is going to do, if I am writing a bunch of HTML over here, it is just going to render that HTML on your UI without much thought process. So if you are injecting certain things malicious through user input, inner HTML is just going to execute it as HTML, right? So you have that responsibility as a developer at that point in time, that any user input that you are accepting, you have to sanitize them. You have to make sure that nobody is able to inject those malicious script, nobody able to do that, XSS attacks and things like that. So you have to take that call basically in your case. So in our case, let us go ahead and start using the inner HTML itself, because we can basically wrap it up a little faster once we have this structure. Or another alternative would be, let me write that code for you a little bit so that you know that. Alternative is document.create element. You say write one div, and then you do container.appendChild. You add this particular div, you have to take it in a, say, const parent, and you have to pass this one. And then this is not the end, right? Here you might want to add certain CSS to this particular div that you're creating. So for that you have to again do parent dot class list dot add a particular class name, right? So this is how you have to manage. So instead of that, maybe to save time and make it much more faster, let me bring back a HTML that I have written and kept. So we'll do container dot inner HTML. Okay. Let's see. Let me just copy paste this one. Just a second. Where it is? Yeah, it is here. I'll explain this to you. Don't worry. But I want to save time on this, all the HTML part. Okay, it's little bigger. I'm just taking the full screen for that reason, making it completely formatted. Okay, let's explain this one. What we are doing. We have created the div that I just now created using DOM API with create element. I can write it directly because I'm using the inner HTML. And another advantage is, as I'm using Tailwind, all these classes I can use and write inline. So that is where the inner HTML is very, very flexible for me. Now I have used a H3 over here, right? H3 is using product.name. Here each of the product and each of the product's name that I'm using over here, right? So that H3 will have that particular product's name. Then I'm using products category. Basically, each of the details of a product, like the JSON having the name, category, how many they are in the stock, how many are sold, how many, what is this amount, and then fixing it to 2 decimal, all these things, the last updated value, everything, and even the button, over there, everything that I have captured over here in this div. So this can be a isolated HTML, that the structure that you are copying, and instead of hard coding the data, right now I am taking the data from each of the product that I am iterating through. Okay, so far I think either it should break or it should render something, right? So here the render each product info is happening here. Okay, so let's see like what happens. I'll go back to this, I'll go back to this, I'll do, yeah, something happened. So it has taken, previously only I was seeing that I could make that product call, get the product thing, was printing in the console.log. Now I'm iterating through getting each of the product, and I have this div to this div, this bottom div is just this particular square, where this laptop is nothing but the product.name. This category information you see here category colon, this is the category colon, is in the strong, means it will be bold, is showing the actual category value for that product, which is electronics. Same for the stock, sold, price, last updated value, and then the button. As simple as that. Okay, so this is how we could actually display this part. Okay, now when you are doing inner HTML, especially things like this display product, this particular thing, we might have to call again in later point in time. Think about when we implement this restock. When I click on this restock button, I am supposed to increase the stock of this particular laptop, say by 5. I want to make it 9. So that should be, that we call should go as a edit call, go to my server, should update this particular JSON data, and then I should fetch back the products again to render it again with the updated data, isn't it? So that time this display product method itself will be very useful. I can just call this display product method, which is anyway iterating through all the products, and it is going to print it. But right now, how many times display product method you will call, it is going to bring the products that many times, and it is going to put that into the container. It is just going to append it in the container. So one good practice or one must practice that you should have, if you're using inner HTML on a particular container, you have to make sure that you are always making it blank before you start putting the entry, right? So you can make it like dot inner HTML equals to this, or you can iterate through this particular container using a loop and can call remove method, the remove child method, and can remove each of the children. So this is a safeguard that you must do. That's what I have added. The code will still work. Yeah. So the next thing, what we're going to do, either I can implement the restock or I can implement the chart. Maybe I'll think that I'll implement the restock. Maybe that will be a good thing to do. Okay, so let's do restock. Okay, for restock, what I have to do, I have to click on this button. And whenever I click on this button, the expectation is I will add the product into the stock. Maybe I'll increase the product by 2, 3 number. So stock count should go higher, right? Now it means this button should have some kind of click handler, correct? Here, I have not added any click handler. If you see, this is the button. I have not added any click handler. I have added something called a data ID. I think this is something, again, you should be definitely looking for, like what is the data attribute. We, often we ignore HTML a lot because it is very easy to copy and very easy to generate code and things like that. But still, you need to know few things. For example, this data attribute. If you don't know, please go ahead and learn about data attribute, that how beautifully it can help, where you can actually store some data for each of the element which you can query back later point in time, which is way different from your ID that you add and the use cases of it. It is very important. We are going to use that. Okay. So each of the button we have added a data ID, which we have given a product ID, which is like the unique thing, right? Now we have not added any listener, any handler to these buttons. So practically nothing will work if I click on it. There's nothing, no handler. So we have to add certain handler, right? So let's add the handler to these buttons. And again, instead of coding it here, I would always want it in a way that is different method. So this is for restock, right? So add restock button handlers. Let your function name be verbose, I mean bigger, so that looking into the name itself people can understand. I know that there will be certain linters rules in your code, that the function name can be or the class name can be only this big. You don't have to really write a complete like story for it, but at least something which makes sense. I'm going to add restock button handlers. So this is the name. So let's go ahead and keep adding. Okay, so let's add it over here. Let's do a function add restock handler. Now what we are going to do inside this handler, this is where the data ID is going to be very, very useful, because as you have added this data ID and it has a value, where is it? Yeah, I added a data ID and it has a value, and I have also added a class. You see this? I have also added a class. So I can actually get all the buttons on my UI using this particular class, isn't it? Because there are three buttons. This is restock, restock, restock. Now if I just write a query like this, that I'll go over here a little bit, go to console, just to make you understand, document dot query selector all, okay, and then pass a query selector with this particular class name. This class name I don't use for my styling at all. What it returns, it is returning something called a node list. You seeing that? It is returning a node list where all the three buttons are there, because in all three buttons I have added this class. So that means outside of this HTML fragment, now I can access these buttons uniquely, because each of these buttons are uniquely giving me all these three buttons and can do anything on top of that. And I am passing this ID over here, this data ID, as a product ID, because now I can fetch a product's ID when someone click on this particular button. If you want to edit a data, you have to pass the ID of that data to the backend API so that you can edit it, isn't it? So to edit this particular data so that I can increase the stock by 5, I have to know the ID of this particular product, right? So that I can tell my API to edit it. How do I know? This is the way you can make the connection. So now going to this method that I have just now created, let's go inside that and let's start putting the code. So first, let's get all the buttons with the same code we have just now written, document dot query selector all, and here what was the value? I think I have copied it already. Yeah, this is the one. This is the one. So I have this value. Now this gives me all the buttons, and this is a node list. It's an array-like structure, so I can actually use a for each on top of it. Now I can get each of this button, each of this node is a for each, and for each of this button, now the beautiful part over here is like I can add a event listener. So I can do button dot add event listener. What kind of event I'm interested in? I'm interested in adding a click, and then once we add the click, what will happen? Something has to happen. For that I have to define a function. Now inside this function, what I can do, this is the beauty, I can take the ID from where this button I had added a data, right? So I will have a button. This is the button object I'm getting. dot, what was the data ID value? I think it, okay, we can get it with the data set, data set, and then the value that I'm passing over here was ID, I think, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's here, data hyphen ID, right? This is the ID. Okay, so this is why data star attribute is very important. Please read about it, where it is. Yeah. So I can give ID because I given data hyphen ID, right? So I have this value. Okay. Now this value, if you want, you can parse it to integer because you want to pass it. It doesn't matter. It could be string also, but let's do a console.log of ID. At least whatever we assume makes sense that it will make sense that it will work. Okay. So let's go back and test it out. So now if I click on each of this button, whatever the ID I have assigned to, the product ID I have assigned to that button, it should print. Let's refresh. Yes, it is giving 2. The first one is giving 1. The last one is giving 3. You're able to see that? These are the IDs of the product, each of the product. Now, beautiful part is I got the ID. If I got the ID now, what I can do? I can edit that particular product, right? So to edit it, now instead of calling it as a edit product, the function, let's call it by functionality. What is the functionality? Functionality is about restocking it. So let's call this particular functionality as restock item. So let's call it as restock item. And which item we are planning to restock? This particular product ID. Okay. Of course, I have to make a call now, an API call. Which call we'll be making? Once you do an update, once you want to do an update of a resource, over HTTP call using the REST standard, there are two ways that you can do that update. This is where I'm also making this F for fundamentals. Please guys, look into that. Very recently, there is a HTTP methods video where it explain like what is the difference between a put and patch call, right? So put is when you'll be making an edit call to replace your resource entirely except the ID. Patch is when you will be editing the part of your data, part of your resource. Here, restocking item means I am just going to edit the stock. I'm not going to edit the entire thing, its categories, how many sold, price, and etc. So of course, I'll be making a patch call, patch HTTP method using the same fetch API, which is an async call. So that means the function restock item will be async function, of course, because I'm going to use a fetch inside that. So I can safely write and await over here. Okay. Now let's go ahead and start writing restock. So we'll do a function restock. It takes a product ID. It's a function, and of course it's going to be an async function. Now tell me, if it is the async function and it is going to fetch, it is going to use the fetch call, and after fetch call usage is going to do the patch. How are you going to do it, right? It's probably exactly the same logic that we have written over here, this fetch. We are going to pass the same URL, no doubt about it. Then we are going to append the product ID with it, because this will identify the product that we are going to edit. We have to pass a few options along with it, isn't it? What will be the options that we have to pass? The options that we have to pass over here is like what kind of call it is, what is the method is patch, what is the header, maybe the applications like JSON, and then the body, the actual data that I want to update with. Now I want to update this one, the stock by another 5 laptop or another 5 desktop chair, and I want to set the value for it. Now the problem over here is like I'm using JSON server. I don't have my customized API logic written using Node or something. JSON server has its own limitation. It just gives you all this get, post, patch, call, but again, to write your custom logic, you have to use Node, and I'm not getting into that particular complexity. But why I'm telling that right now, once I click on this restock, in this particular restock method, you just have product ID. Here, you don't have any idea about what is the current stock value of this particular product. Correct, na? You don't have any idea. If I had the backend control. Whenever I'm making that fetch call to update this particular product, from backend itself, I would have retrieved that the current stock value is 4, then appended it another 5, done the edit and sent back the response. But right now I don't have any control on the backend code. So for this purpose alone, in the real life, you may not do it. If you're writing your Node Express or the fast API code to write your own API, you will be taking care of this thing in the backend itself. You still just need the product ID. It will make a call. Backend itself will know what is the current stock. It will just increase. But here I don't know it. So I have to make one extra call, which is really not good, to know what is the current stock. Okay. So let's write a method called get current stock. Okay, I know it's getting longer, but it's fine to spend that time. Let me see how much I can do for probably another half an hour time. So await get current stock. I have not written this method, but I'm expecting that this const current stock is going to return the current stock of this particular product. We'll be writing this in a while. After I get the current stock, now I can make a fetch call. Okay, so I'll put everything inside, of course, try catch as practice. And these are all repetitive code. So some of this code will be exactly like the fetch call code. So I won't be really writing some of them going forward. So let's do ERR and then we'll do something over it. Maybe console.error or writing into that error div. We have seen that before. Okay, so let's do this patch call. So for this, we have to do const, again, response equals to await fetch. What will be the URL, by the way? The URL will be, let's copy that URL. It will be that product's URL, same, whatever we had before. But now you need the product ID also to uniquely identify this particular product to restock it. So let's pass the product ID. This is your URL. Now, if you want to make any other call, any other HTTP method call, apart from get, you have to let the fetch API know using some configuration option. For that, you pass an object. Here, you tell what kind of operation you're going to make. So you say method. I'm going to make patch call. I've already explained why patch. Then you will tell like what kind of content type you are actually dealing with. This is a pure copy paste. You add a header through which you say the content type that I'm dealing with is a application/JSON. After that, you pass what you want to update with, right? So this one you have to pass as a string. Though you're passing an object, for example, you want to update the stock price with current stock price plus maybe addition to 5. So usually you will pass an object like stock. This is the attribute used for this product to give you the stock value. So you have to maintain the same attribute so that it knows, your backend knows you have to update this particular attribute's value only. So that is stock. Okay. Now this stock, what is the current stock I have? This current stock value plus 5. You can give any value, 2, 3, whatever it is. But this entire thing you have to pass as a string. So that's the reason you will be doing as a JSON.stringify and you will pass this as a string. Okay. So this much is enough actually for to work. But after that, you have to do some more thing. Like after getting this response, just like before, you have to do const data equals to await of response.json. Okay. Now if you do console.log of this data, this will give you whatever server returns after making that update, basically the updated data. Okay, this is what you're going to get. But we yet to have this current stock implemented, right? So current stock, how can you get current stock? You basically make a get call to this particular URL. You get this particular product. This product is having a stock attribute. You do dot stock. It gives you the current stock. No other rocket science we have learned so far. So you know like how to get the current stock. I have it written. So I'm just going to copy paste this one, without spending too much time in writing it. So I'll just do the current stock copy paste. Okay. So get current stock, get the product ID. and then I have to pass the product ID over here. Okay, passing it already. Okay, then making the call to that particular product ID. If I'm not passing any options, means it's a get call. So it is going to give me the response. From the response.json, I'm getting the product. From product, I'm getting the stock. I'm returning the stock. So this is the current stock. I'm getting the current stock. I'm making an edit using the patch method, increasing the current stock by 5, and then I'm getting what is the response data and printing it over here. So let's see if this works so far. I hope it works. Okay. Okay, something broken. Really, let's see. One error. Await, okay, I forgot async await somewhere. 61. 61. I know where I forgot. Have you guys got where I forgot? See this. This is await. Okay, on the click handler, but I have not put any async over here. So even if it is an anonymous function, it is your handler function. Even if you are doing this await over here, you have to make it as async. Okay, so await inside a function can exist only with async keyword. Now at least let's see. Okay, it is back. Excellent. So this is stock is 4. Let's do restock. Okay, I got something. I got the updated record. After restock, the stock is 9. Excellent. So my put call worked. That is for sure. My patch call worked. That is for sure. But it didn't update the UI. Why? Because wherever I made this call, this restock, after I got the data, after restocking, I have not refreshed my UI, right? So what I can do right now is I have this display method, isn't it, that I have written, display product. One way that I can do it is to call this display product over here. Okay, now let's refresh. This become 9. If I restock, 14, restock 19, I restock this one, only this is changing, this is not changing because I have separated out is each of this event handler. If I restock this, only this is changing, these are not changing. Okay, so this functionality of restocking works. We had to write some extra code to take care of this, extra thing like current stock and all. But if you're doing your, backend implementation and all, I'm sure like you won't be doing this. Okay, guys. So far we are good. Now the next functionality that we want to build, let it go, is about this particular stock versus solid chart. Okay. So for this purpose, you can use any chart library, but one chart library is close to my heart and I like is called chart.js. I'm sure like you guys may know this chart.js. It's an open source HTML5 chart, uses canvas. You might be using. Its capability might be a bit lesser compared to many other extraordinary charting libraries that are out there. But what I would suggest is like if you want to get something simple, something open source, where even something is not available, you want to go ahead and easily add into the ecosystem, you can look into it. I have used this in production. It's really cool. I think it's worth spending effort on this one. Okay, now if I do get started, getting started, installation, there are multiple ways that you can install this. You can install it using npm, you can install it using CDN, whatever the ways that you can do. We can probably go ahead and take it in the CDN way, whatever the ways that you possibly want to do. Now for that I have to go to index.html file and I have this CDN, where is the URL? Yeah, this is the URL. This is the URL. Okay, so this is a JS. So I need a script tag basically. So let's add this guy over here. Okay, so I'm adding this particular script CDN, yeah, this guy, the package npm chart.js file, this particular script src. So this is enough. I think this will bootstrap my chart easily. Okay, let's go back here, let's go back to JS. Okay, now when this chart should come, the chart should come when my UI is rendered. The first time the UI is coming up, the chart should come. So it means the first time when the UI is coming up, I am actually calling a function which is called display product. So I have the display product. So apart from display product, which is displaying all this thing, I can now add one more method over here, which can do things like adding the chart for me, right? So I can add the chart over here after displaying all these things over here. So how do we do that? So for that, let's create one more function. We can call it as create chart, maybe. Let's call it as add chart. Okay. Okay. What kind of chart we are planning to add? We are planning to add a bar chart, very simple bar chart, which gives me a bar with of how many are there in the stock versus how many are sold. Side by side bar chart. So it needs something, right, to plot it. The list probably it needs is the products. So we already have the products in this function. If you remember, with this fetch we got the products. Okay, maybe another suitable name would be, instead of add, render. Sorry, little bit finicky about names. Okay, so this one. Now let's go ahead and implement the render charts. Now I'll do function render chart. It take the products, and then I have to start creating things over here. Now here you need some knowledge of what do you say, the chart.js file. Let me explain it at a bit high level, because this is something you can learn anytime. So for example, if you go to this step-by-step guide, I think this is enough. You come to some of this code over here. See, we have done this part already, adding it to HTML. Yeah. So this is your data. Okay. And this is the only code that you'll be writing for chart. It's pretty easy. What you do from your HTML, let me increase the, from your HTML, you will get the place or the segment where you want to render the chart. We already have created a div, remember, na? And got also the ID of it. That is the context. That's we call context of your chart, where you want to render it. Then you give the type of the chart, bar. Okay. So our case also is going to be the bar. Then you give the data. While data, you have to give the level of the data, and then the data set. Okay, that actual data set through which your chart will be rendered. For us, what are the data set? Our data set is simple. One is stock, so you need to get the stock data, and there is the sold, so you need to get the sold data. Apart from that data set, you can actually customize it by giving a different background color, and then it has a functionality of plugin. I'm not sure if it has any, plugin through which you can control if you want a tooltip or you want the legend, all these things. So let's use some of this. Of course, this is not the class for chart.js. You can explore it and you can enhance it. Any of this code is with you, so you can do practically anything that you want. Okay, so for rendering the chart, we need few things. We need the div, where exactly the chart will go and sit. Then what we need the context. Whether context also provide, like whether you need a 2D chart, 3D chart, all these things. Okay. So let's do this. We have something called inventory chart, isn't it? Yes. So let's take this. This is where document.getElement by ID inventory chart, which is nothing but this guy. In this canvas only you want to fit it, isn't it? All right. So let's go there. Yeah. So let's first create the context. So call it ctx context. Our element is inventory chart. On top of that, we can have something called a get context, because it is a canvas. We can always put this get context, and then we can create a 2D context, because we are going to create a 2D chart. Okay. Now the fun. Now there are certain people always ask about data structure. Now the data structure comes into picture, because your chart requires a specific data structure. Data structure always doesn't mean stack, queue, your map, your array, your object, linked list. It's, fundamentally it means how you want to structure your data for your use case, right? So we need few ways to structure our data for the chart. It requires the stock data. It requires an array of values to build the bar. Okay, array of values. Now array of values for our case, one will be our stock data. That means array of all the stocks of all the product. Second, array of sold data. That means array of sold value of all the product. And then for putting the labels, it needs the array of labels, which is nothing but the product names, right? Now we have the products, this particular data structure. From this data structure, can we build three more smaller data structure for labels, stock data, and sold data? Let's do that. So const, let's get the labels first. I have the products, isn't it? So I'll take the products. If I need an array of all the product name so that I can use it as a label, what I'm going to do? You all know, right? There is a transformative method, a transformation method called map, right? I can use that. So that can transform any array to another array, with any kind of logic that you want to write. Here the logic is simple. For each of the product, take out the name. That's it, the logic. So now the labels will be nothing but an array of all the product names that we are going to use as a label for the chart. Now next we need the stock data. So we'll do const stock data equals to same thing. I'm going to copy now to save time. I'll do stock. That's it. Now if I need sold data, I'm going to copy it further and I'm going to tell it as sold data and I will say sold. Now it has all these three things over here. I have an array of labels. I can pass it to the chart because chart needs it in that way. It's the data structure that it relies on. Array of stock, array of sold data. Now it's time that I'm going to create this chart. Now to create this chart, I can use something called new chart API. That comes from where? That comes from this particular line I have added over here, this chart.js. It gives me this chart. If you had handled it in the npm way, you have to install it with npm, then import this chart from the npm library and use it. But we are using raw JavaScript, plain old JavaScript. The first thing it needs is the context, where to draw this chart. So this is the context. Yes, this is the context. Okay. And then it needs all those configurations that I have showed you in that example. What is the type of the chart? Bar. Then it needs data. It's an object. And with this object, first thing that you'll be passing the array, the labels array. Okay. So first is the labels. It expects array of labels we have given. Then you have to pass the data sets. Data sets. I hope I'm just doing, this key's name is correct, otherwise it will give an error and we have to deal with it. Okay. So the first data set we are looking for the bar for the stock, right? So here we have to give a label. You can give any label of your choice. I'll say stock. And then the actual data. The data is our stock data. Data is our stock data. So I'll be putting the stock data. Optionally, you can actually give a background color. Okay. So let's give a background color. Still, I don't know what is the exact attribute, G small or G capital. Let's try. Okay, let's give some background color. Let's give a blue style background color 3B. Wait, I have something I'll copy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is the background color. Now, the second data set, this is a bar chart between stock versus sold. So the next one is about the sold. And I have the sold data already, isn't it? Yeah, I have the sold data. And I can give another color for the bar. Otherwise, it will take the default color. So let's give a blue and green color. I have a green color code, or you can select from here also if you want. Yeah. Okay. So this is good. This is good for my chart to render. So if you see, this guy is having everything. This data guy is having everything. Now, optionally, along with the data, you can do few other things. For example, you can pass few options. The one is like, if you want your chart to be responsive, you can give responsive true. Okay, these are few small options, and then you can take advantage of something called a plugins. I think it is plugins. Yeah, plugins. Here you can tell different configuration. For example, do you want a legend? If you want a legend, then in that case, where do you want the legend? For example, in this case, position I want at the top. Okay, so things like this, basically, nothing more than that. So this is what you require to render the chart. I hope it works. If it doesn't, we have to debug it. I hope we have that time. So let's see. Let me again reduce it. Yeah. Refresh. Something broke royally. Okay. Fn F12. Let's see. We'll fix it. Don't worry. Invalid unexpected token 117. Where? Okay, I got it. This is a string. This is where VS Code confuses you. I actually thought it will render. Okay, I think this error gone. Yes. So much happiness. Okay, so I have the chart. Great. So I'm really feeling happy about this. So these are the legends, the stock and the sold. You are seeing laptop, yeah, 19. This is the 19 over here. Sold 15. Sold 15. Yeah, 12. Yeah, all these values that you're getting. Super. So it works all the way. Excellent. Now there are few best practices, right? That's the whole reason we are doing this live, to talk about the best practices all the time. See this render chart. For example, if I'm restocking now, you are actually increasing the sold value by 5. But you have to sync this with your chart also, na? If I increase, let's say this guy, what is value? 19. Where is the 19 guy? 19. If I increase now, this will become 24. But this is still 19. Right? It's not refreshed. To refresh it, probably the easiest thing that I have to do, that I have this restock, right? Restock function somewhere. Yeah. So this restock, after this display product, I can just get all the products and I can call this particular render chart again. So this will work for sure, you understand. But the problem is the chart on the canvas on that context will be added again and again because I have just written the code of adding the chart. But every time you want to refresh the chart, for the performance sake, you have to make sure that you destroy the old chart instance from the canvas, and then you add the new chart instance. So, okay. So to make sure of that, let us write some logic about destroying it. Okay. So this will return me a chart instance. So let's take that chart instance and add that chart instance on the window object so that we can actually deal with it. It will be always available whenever you come back later point in time. Okay. So I have this window.inventory chart. Now after taking this window.inventory chart, every time before you render this chart, only few lines of code. First you check whether window.inventory chart exists or not. That's the first check. Then you can check actually this chart has a method called destroy. Okay. So if the window.inventory chart is there, then you check whether you have the destroy method or not, or actually destroy function is there or not. There are multiple ways you can check. You can just check window.inventory chart dot destroy, destroy. Yeah, this is the function name. You can check whether this also exists or not, or you can go one more level up and can check with a type of that this particular thing is a function. That means it is not only from chart.js, because chart.js is having a destroy function, but it is also added to my window object because once it is created, so I have added it to the window object. Now I'm checking for the next time, is it already added in the window object? Yes. Now I can do very convincingly, I can take this guy and I can call the destroy method. Okay. Now by chance, you don't have this destroy method, or there is some reason the destroy function is not found, I think the best practice would be still, you can still check it that the this particular inventory chart is still there or not, and then you can set this inventory chart to null. This is a fallback, just a fallback, because you had added something now in the window object inventory chart. Even if it was not initialized correctly, if it is initialized correctly, you will definitely have this destroy function, and you are destroying it using the destroy function. In case it is not initialized properly, still you are adding something into the window object, right, by yourself. You don't want to pollute the window object unnecessarily. So in that case also, you're checking whether the window object still having this property, set it back to null. So it doesn't have anything, not even any undefined value or anything as such. So this is a good practice. With this practice, let's see. Okay, I screwed something again. Unexpected 113. It happens because coding since long. Else if. Okay, now, yeah, things are back. Okay, no worries. Now the last thing, that is refreshing the chart, right, when we are restocking it. Okay, so we'll see that. Right now if I restock, nothing is refreshing. So let's call, where is my restock? Yeah. So after restocking, after displaying the product, I can just call okay, after I display the product, the display product is taking, let me see this one. So the display product is fetching the products, this one, and it is rendering the chart. Okay, so now what we can do over here, we can do some small modification in our restock item. So restock item is for the product ID. It is just going to restock, means it's just going to make it like by 4, by 5, all this thing. And after doing that, I can actually take this out, and let's modularize much further. Refresh, we can do the refresh chart or refresh data, refresh chart. Okay, so what refresh chart can do, let's do the function refresh chart. Okay, refresh chart, first it can do like, it can get me back the current products. That's the first thing that it can do. After getting the current product, after fetching the correct product, then it can just render the chart, right? So I already have a method called const, sorry, I pressed Fn, const get all the products equals to await. I have fetch all products, some method I have, right? Yeah, fetch products. So let's go to await fetch products. Okay, now once I get all this product, of course I have to make this as async function. Okay, and then for that reason I have to make it as await. That's okay. So I have these products. After products, I can call it like render chart, and then I can pass these products. Okay, so with this code, now I should be able to refresh the chart. So render chart now can go Fn F12, it gets the products, and then yeah, it can actually do the job for me, right? So let's see, let's refresh, let's, okay, it's very small to see, let me just expand this, right? Let me get rid of this. Let's restock, which one, second one, maybe increase stock. Okay, it increased, actually it becomes 17. Okay, I have taken the display method from there, so I think it's not doing that correctly. So I'll go back over here wherever I did refresh chart after restock. Okay, so what are my display method? Display product. Now let's come back to this. Let's refresh. Okay, so now it is 17. It become 22. Now this also increased to 22. Restock 27. It's 27, 32, 32. So this one is in 20. Now if I click on this, it become 25. Yeah, it's become 25. So the restocking and changing the chart both kind of happen side by side. It happen every time that you are doing, so which is good. And then what you can do is like this whatever we actually wanted to develop, we developed, but still we have some room for making this code better. That let's talk about in last 10 minutes and then we'll close it. One of the things that you might have noticed that how many times we have used this fetch. Fetch 2, 3, 4 times, right? So you can actually write a common function because fetch takes an URL at the end of it. And apart from URL, in some cases, there are some options. Also, you would have noticed that somewhere I have handled this error condition in some fetch. I'm sure that there will be one fetch where I would have forgotten. Yeah, here, I haven't added it. So in your code also, this kind of thing might happen anytime. Like if you are using similar kind of function again and again, multiple times, what will eventually happen that sometime you really forget to do things. So instead of just repeating the same thing again and again, I think the best thing that you can do is to write some common methods. And for this one, for all this fetch, we can actually write a very common method and pretty easily. Okay, so let's do that and then refactor this code and we'll end there. Okay, so let's write a function called API request. Okay, so async function it will be because it will have the fetch call and then it's a function and we'll call it as API request. Okay, and what are the things that it can take? Your fetch call takes a URL, so it will take a URL. Okay, your fetch call takes an option. Through option, what you tell the method name, whether it's a get, post, put, patch, all these things. Now you can pass a method. For the simplicity sake, this is where also the knowledge of JavaScript function is very important, that you can use a default value for your parameter, right? So I can actually default it using get. That means if you don't pass this method at all while calling this function, by default it will be get. For HTTP methods, for fetch it is by default get, right? So we are actually keeping that paradigm itself so that our code refactoring become very, very easy. And then you can take a body. Of course, for get call, you don't pass a body. You pass a body for post, put, delete. So I can do a default value for this as a null. So when you write a function, especially this is actually a pattern, right? We're using. So especially for this kind of things where you want to do your code refactoring at the same time, you don't want to make too many changes because you don't want to change the contract. Right now the contract everywhere, like everywhere I have used fetch. My intention is like I will go to those fetch, I'll just replace the fetch with this API request. That's it. I'm not going to tweak anything that has been passed to that particular fetch. That's my intention. Now keep that contract exactly same. I have to handle few things at my end. So if somebody doesn't pass the method, it means I assume the method will be get. Somebody doesn't pass the body, it's fine, because for method get, you won't be passing body. Now all this try, catch, everything I'll be handling it here. Okay, so first thing that I'll be doing is my options. So let's do const that I have to pass to the fetch options equals to, what is the first thing the option take is a method, which I'm already taking as a parameter. After that, it takes a header, right? So this header I have already copy pasted. I am not taking it from outside because in most of the cases we'll be handling only with JSON. So I can actually hard code this over here, application JSON. Okay, very good. Then I will be checking if there is a body passed, because body can be null, isn't it? Let me close this. Body can be null. So if body passed, only in this case I can add options dot body and then assign that body, but before that you remember I have to do a stringify, json dot stringify, and I'll be doing this body. Awesome. Now entire options is ready. As the options are ready, the next thing is pretty simple, right? I will do const response equals to await fetch. I am passing the URL, isn't it? I'll take the URL, pass this. Then what I'll take the options, pass this. Now this gives me response. Here now I can do that check, right? If response dot okay is not okay, then I can throw. So all this command code in one place. Okay, this is what very important when you are doing the code. I can throw like, you know, API error. Here you can actually write, you know, there are many things in the response object. Basically you should do console.log of response object and see like what is there inside the response object. One of the thing is like status, like with what status code it has failed. You're just throwing that particular thing as well. And then finally you will do a return of await of response. Okay, now my throat is paining. Dot JSON. Okay, and I have given a try over here. So you will do a catch over here. You will do ERR like before. You will do console dot error of ERR. Additionally, you can take that error item at the top and do a dot text content and do a error message also, right? Like how we did before. Okay, if you had a loading indicator, we have not used it in the code. You can actually do the loading dot text content equals to loading dot text content equals to null. All these things you can take care in the single place. Okay, great. So now I have this API request which is capable of making this fetch call, capable of doing everything that you are doing in the multiple places with fetch. Now it's time to refactor my code, and here I might end up breaking many things, but let's see. Okay, let's go from the top. Fetch. Okay. First fetch. I'm going to replace this with my new thing, API URL, which takes URL and options both. It returns the data. From this response, what data we were getting before? We were getting, oh, sorry, I replaced this one only, sorry, my bad. Okay, let's go up, yeah. So this is my fetch products. So here I'll be first replacing this fetch itself with the API request. It takes URL, okay. I'm not passing any method, so by default it is get satisfied, excellent. It returns the actual data. Actual data itself is products in this case, so I can do const products. I don't have to write this code. It has been handled inside the API request. I don't have to write this code because this itself return products. You see, code is pretty simple now. Okay, now let's go to next fetch. Again, I'll be replacing API request. Fair enough. I don't need this response. The final outcome was product. I'll just assign this to product. It's pretty simple now. I don't need this, and I'll return product. Then next fetch. Now here, this is for what? This is for patch call. Okay, so first let's take this API request. Sorry, not this one. First take this API request for this fetch. It takes this URL. Our API request function take this URL. Great. Then it takes just the method name. It doesn't take all these things. You don't need all these things, right? So it will take the method name. Then last, it will take this particular body. That's it. Because all this JSON.stringify and everything I am doing inside only. So I'll just get rid of all this. Your code is now much simpler, isn't it? Okay. What it returns? Data. So I can do data. I can get rid of all these things that I was doing before. Now beauty is, even though I missed response.ok taking care of it, I don't have to really bother because this guy is taking care of it already inside. Now we'll go to next fetch. This next fetch is about the API request itself, which by mistake I first time replaced, but now I don't have to replace. So this is my code refactoring. So now with this code refactoring, with this API request, I can now use for all my fetch call. I don't have to write that fetch call everywhere. My code is much simpler now, and I think it is best thing that I test it out now. There might be some error, but let's see. Oh, no error. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's increase the stock from 24. This is 24. Restock 29. Okay, it become 29. 37. Okay, things are working, it seems. Okay. Now, could there be more refactoring possible, making this code little bit better? Yes. The more we will look into it, there will be more refactoring possible. Okay. I would leave it to you guys to do further refactoring, because I think I have given you a lot of overview of starting with something from scratch and then building something along the line. Even if you're watching live or watching later point in time, make sure you are doing this proper way. Okay, so let's take some questions. Let's see. Thanks for enjoying it, whoever told. Okay, please provide a series for 3 years experience. Why 3 years? I don't know how this 3 years came in your mind. I think in today's age, even if you're a fresher, there are different ways of preparing for interviews. So the question is like to provide a series for 3 years interview experience. I think the interview experience should be like for every different experience level, because nowadays things have changed a lot. So I'm taking some questions now. If you have questions, please put that. Yeah, definitely. I'll just to answer your question, I'll definitely put something. I have already published a few videos on interviews under the career playlist. You can take a look, but I'll be really publishing more. Okay, at present we can design very nicely with AI. Should we now focus more on the depth to put more emphasis on the logic and the, yes, absolutely. See, the thing is like, you go to V0 or anything. I mean, you just give the prompt, it is going to give you the design. Yeah, please use that, create your own design. In fact, I'll say that go to the extent of creating your the skeleton code as well, right? Some skeleton code also you can create, which will accelerate. You can create it to accelerate your work. But only thing is like, you have to understand that code. So make your logic better. This particular code is having one bug. It's having one issue. I have not fixed. Okay, it is about rendering the chart. It is getting rendered twice. If so now you can take this code, give it to ChatGPT, and tell that fix this bug where rendering happening twice. ChatGPT probably will understand something, will give it to you. But will you understand where exactly the fix went? Because tomorrow, if that fix is breaking something else, there is no way that you can actually track back and do it. So that fix, you have to plan fixing it. I am going to share this code. Once this video gets published, I'll put this into the repo. I want each of you to go and try fixing that error and let me know that you have fixed that. You have made it. It is not visible error, but it's a performance issue, right? So yes, to answer to your question, yes, definitely. Using chart.js methods was challenging. Yeah, I need to know like where exactly it was challenging. For me, chart.js become easier over the period of time because I've used it a lot. It's being an open source, used for a lot of side projects, used for production projects. So it become easier for me. Maybe you can comment back on this video later, like, or you're there. Vandana, if you're there on the Discord, we can chat there. We can talk. But here, whatever the code that I have written for the chart.js, the code is almost like this. What it needs 2 bars, one for stock, one for sold. And your chart needs pointed data. It doesn't need all the data. It needs the number pointed data. The pointed data it needs as an array. So I had created an array, supplied it. I had created an array, supplied it. What this array has, individual array is having only those numbers, stock number, sold number. That's it. That's all the chart needs. So this is what you have to go by, the configuration of what chart demands. Only thing from your side you have to do is like the data structure is what you have to prepare. Okay, so that nobody can help you. That is something you have to know about array, and you have to actually use that to get it done. Okay, other things are mostly about enjoying, all these things. So there is no much questions. I'm sure that you may have more questions once you again start looking into it later point in time. I told that there is an announcement, right? To before I end this video, let me see whether I have done everything or not first. Yeah, talking for 2 hours is little difficult. I realize that. Yeah, so we have done everything: code, refactor, improve. Okay, the announcement is like next week we are going to get started with object-oriented programming and Tapascript. Irrespective of whether you are with JavaScript, Java, any other programming language, wherever you deal with object-oriented programming is a concept. You need that concept, and then once you have that concept, you understand every bricks of object-oriented programming. Then the language comes into picture, whether it's a JavaScript, it is Java, or whatever it is. You build those bricks, whether it's a polymorphism, abstraction, whatever it is, all those concepts using that language. Okay, uh, this is what is coming. That will be the last but one module in 40 days of JavaScript. I'm actually getting little relaxed now that the playlist coming to a the series is probably coming to an end, and I have a lot of other things to focus on. After that, I have to restart my Bangla channel's React playlist that is halted for a long time. All these things to do. So, but object-oriented programming, irrespective, you are learning from my Bangla channel, English channel, or wherever it is. I think that's something going to be super awesome, because that's something I feel I can teach really well, because I've worked on it for years and years, right? So see you guys with object-oriented programming soon next week. Stay well, enjoy your weekend, and please let me know how this thing was. Post some comment on the video once this video is available under the live tab. Take care. We'll be back soon again. Thank you very much.